Hi everyone, Kathy Rose here, and I'm going to talk to you about the astrological patterns for February 2026. This happens to be an incredibly important month for the year. We have loads and loads of strong astrological activity taking place. So I'm looking forward to telling you about this. Let's begin by looking at the themes for February. First of all, one of the things that's so nice is that this is the Chinese New Year month where we begin the year of the fire horse. And the fire horse energy working with Saturn and Neptune and Aries is going to exaggerate and make very, very powerful just that elemental strength of fire, which is action. It's going to be flowing through us. This is really the theme of the year. Now, Mercury is also going to retrograde in February, but it's going to retrograde in Pisces, which is very opposite energy of Aries. I'll explain that when we get there, but basically, the Mercury retrograde in Pisces is going to help us integrate what we needed to bring forward from that very long transit of Neptune in Pisces. And then, on top of everything else, the Uranus energy in February is going to be very, very strong because it ends the retrograde and makes loads of aspects with other planets. So we're going to go through this step by step. Spectacular month that we have. So let's look at February 1st. Right off the bat, we have a full moon in Leo, and this is going to be at 5:09 p.m. in Eastern Time. So this chart is set for Washington, D.C. This is not just a typical new moon or full moon in Leo. First of all, when the full moon is in Leo, we get to shine brightly. This is when we need to connect with our own ego, our own confidence, our own sense of self, and just radiate and glow our lovingness from our heart chakra. And yes, Leo is a little bit oriented to personal ego. Well, but look what's happening during this full moon. The full moon is going to be opposite five planets in Aquarius: Pluto, Mars, Sun, Venus, and Mercury. And that gives a very different flavor. I love actually this placement because to me, what it's saying is certainly embrace your own self-love, feel good about who you are, radiate and glow your own confidence. But at the same time, this is saying don't forget we are all one, we are all connected. Um, and look at the love for humanity during this time. That's the Aquarian statement. Loving each other, understanding there's oneness, even if we're from different cultures or speak different languages, or even if we have different political views. So there's so much that's powerful during this full moon in Leo. And on top of everything else, if you have watched my past videos, you know I pay close attention to when we have a lunation close to an angle. And in this case, for the United States, the sun and the moon are close to the ascendant, and so is Mars. So that highlights activity happening in the United States, something strong. And it becomes even stronger when we get to the Aquarius new moon, which is an eclipse. And I'll show you that chart when we get there. Right after the full moon in Leo, we have very strong energy having to do with the planet Uranus. On February 3rd, Uranus is going to end the retrograde in Taurus. And this is when Uranus energy just becomes unleashed and very exaggerated. And for February, March, and April, it will be racing through the end of the sign, getting ready to enter the sign Gemini at the end of April. So this period, February, March, and April, is actually very, very important because this is when there is a statement for integrating the grounded practicality that we needed to learn while Uranus was transiting Taurus. Please understand, Taurus is a fixed earth sign, and there is no other sign more oriented to wanting to have a sense of control, stubbornly resistant to change. And as Uranus was entering Taurus, it was trying to teach us that even if there is a surprise, even if we don't know what's coming or we can't predict how something is going to turn out, We are capable and we need to count on our own inner sense of capability to be able to navigate whatever life brings us. Grounded practicality. So it's a beautiful pressure point right now for February, March, and April for people who have planets between 27 degrees and 29 degrees in the fixed modality. The fixed modality is Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. I happen to be one of those. My ascendant is 27 Taurus, so I'm receiving this direct hit from Uranus. I have been for a while, and it's turned out really, really well for me. There's been excitement, there's been adventure, there's been lots of growth forward. So, see, I don't fear Uranus. Uranus doesn't always bring negative things, it sometimes gets a bad rap in astrology. But if you do have planets in your natal chart between 27 and 29 fixed, then you are going to be receiving a heightened level of this Uranus energy as we go through February and probably feeling a renewed sense of freedom. But even if you don't have planets there, you're going to need to integrate grounded practicality. So here's how it plays out during the month. It just keeps getting activated. February 5th, Mercury squares Uranus, and that's when communication energy flows with this need for freedom, this need for spontaneity, this need for innovation. That's when our minds will be particularly energized with electricity. February 8th, Venus squares Uranus, and that's when our connections with each other flows with a lot of electricity and change and excitement. And then February 17th, during the Aquarius eclipse, and I will show you that chart in a moment, the eclipse squares Uranus. So there's this wave of freedom energy and change that is flowing through February. And isn't that interesting? It's at the same time Saturn and Neptune both enter Aries and conjoin. I'll be showing you that slide in a moment. This is really powerful. Manage the Uranus energy well. Make sure you do ground yourself into the earth because, Uranus is high electricity and it can leave you feeling a little jittery if you don't manage it well. Fortunately, we have a background energy of Pisces flow, and Pisces is calmer than the Uranus energy. February 6th, Mercury will enter the sign Pisces and it will stay there until mid-April. That's a long time for Mercury to be in a sign, and that's because it begins a retrograde. And I have another slide in this presentation where I will explain that. February 10th, Venus enters Pisces and stays there until March 6th. Now, one thing to know about Venus in Pisces is it's just beautiful. It's energy that resonates with grace. It's energy that resonates with forgiveness and creativity and intuition. It's just beautiful. So engage in this. And again, love your fellow human. Venus and Pisces can be so beautiful with lovingness. So then, mid month, February 13th, is the date when Saturn ends the transit in Pisces and enters Aries, the fire cardinal sign, engages in all of this action energy. And, you know, it's interesting because last year in 2025, Saturn and Neptune had briefly entered Aries for a short time. And during that time, all of a sudden, my female clients started to say something similar. Now, I've been doing consultations for 43 years. I have more than 20,000 consultations under my belt. And out of the blue, I started to hear of a lot of women saying, I feel imposter syndrome. Saturn and Neptune in Aries is going to help us heal imposter syndrome. And that's more powerful for women than it is men. So it's fascinating. This is going to come up for us. So, all of you women that might be listening, pay attention as this Aries energy is going to push you to embrace your expertise, to confidently embrace where you have wisdom and power, and to feel good about yourself. Just really quickly, men are very much encouraged and socialized to brag or to state their accomplishments. I was top of the class in Harvard, or I made the most sales last year, or I got first place, or my predictions are the best predictions, or my app is the number one app, all those things. And men are usually very much applauded for that. But when a woman does it, sometimes we get told, "Who do you think you are?" Or downplay it. You don't need to brag so much. There's a different reaction when women state their accomplishments. So, what happens is because women don't get approval, in fact, often they get disapproval, then they start to swallow their accomplishments and not embrace their own expertise. Well, it's time for that to stop. And Saturn and Neptune in Aries is going to push this forward for women to go, wait a minute, I do have expertise, I do have accomplishments, and I can feel good about myself. Now, women, estrogen based, as opposed to men, testosterone based, might do it differently, and that's fine. This time frame with Saturn and Neptune in Aries is about women finding their own confidence in their own style and embracing it, even if you can't measure the accomplishment in traditional terms. Because women's accomplishments and expertise is often very much grounded in intuition. So it's a very important time now that Saturn enters Aries and joins Neptune. We're going to be feeling this, and this is going to flow for the next 14 years while Neptune is in Aries. So moving on now, we have the new moon solar eclipse. We have the Chinese New Year, the beginning of the fire horse, that really steps into action February 17th. 7:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, this is an exceptionally powerful eclipse for many reasons. Um, this chart is set for Washington, D.C., so you see the sun and the moon exactly conjunct the ascendant in this chart. And the planet Uranus is square. So this is a humanitarian driven moon. This is connecting with a worldview. And that's echoed and reinforced by the fact that Saturn and Neptune are both at 0 Aries, which is the Aries point, which brings something into public view, connecting with the masses. So there are several things that are important about this. This is understanding personal freedom and understanding human rights and understanding the connection we have with other cultures in the world. Certainly, there's going to be something powerful happening in the United States right around the time of this solar eclipse. It has to be. I mean, this is right on the ascendant in this chart. And the sun and the moon at 28 Aquarius will be conjunct President Trump's descendant. So this is highly activating in many, many ways. Of course, I always hope for something good. I'm not going to embrace absolute negativity when it comes to President Trump. I'm always going to defer to maybe something good can be taking place. I'd rather energize that personally. But this eclipse is going to be activated many times throughout the year. As a matter of fact, I talked about that with my co-presenter for the 2026 forecast video, Agnes Belesny. Agnes presented the feng shui information for the year, and she's also a brilliant astrologer, so she added in on the astrology. And we talked about, of course, the year of the fire horse. But what we talked about at one point is how this eclipse on February 17th gets reactivated several times during the year. Later in the year, when Jupiter goes into Leo, it will advance to 28 Leo, which is opposite the point of this eclipse, 27, 28, 29 Leo. And then later in the year, Mars begins a retrograde in Virgo and retrogrades back to the late degrees of Leo, again, activating the degree in this eclipse by opposition. So we're going to see profound development for what begins in February at the point of this eclipse, developing later in the year and into early next year. And if you have planets in late fixed, like where Uranus is right now, you get particularly energized by this. You can watch that 2026 forecast video on my YouTube channel. It's only a mere 2 hours long. So, right after that very important eclipse on February 20th, we have the Saturn Neptune conjunction, the only exact conjunction in Aries. They were close to an exact conjunction last year, but it wasn't exact to the minute. This time it is. So I call this the moment where we need to start being very aware of spiritual self-sufficiency, because that's the Aries dynamic. Aries is about personal self-sufficiency. And so spiritual self-sufficiency, which is going to be a theme for the next 14 years, as long as Neptune is in Aries, talks about our embrace of being able to go within and get our own answers. Go within, connect with the universe, and get your own answers, trusting your intuition, having the capability of sensing beyond the physical plane when there's truth being told, when there's not. And this is very important during this time frame where AI is getting very, very involved in the news cycle. You can look on social media and there are videos posted that aren't even real. They are AI generated. Now, if you don't have good spiritual self-sufficiency, you might be prone to believing things that are not true. You need to be able to go within and check and trust what you get rather than just going to a channel or a medium or a psychic or any outer authority. Find it within yourself. So start the process of immediately going within to tune in to see what you get and learn the techniques to be able to move into spiritual self-sufficiency. And that also includes cleansing and charging your aura and sealing it, because your aura is the filter for psychic pollution, so that you're not absorbing all the stress of the world or the psychic pollution in the world. Very important moment here. Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries, and this inner power, this self-sufficiency that needs to come forward. All right, so towards the end of the month, Mercury will have already been in Pisces for a while, but on the 26th of February, it begins the retrograde cycle. Now it's going to start the retrograde at 22 degrees Pisces, and it's going to retrograde back to 8 degrees Pisces and end the retrograde on March 20th. So if you have planets between 8 Pisces and 22 Pisces, you're going to receive a direct hit. Now, I always state that receiving a direct hit from a Mercury retrograde is a beautiful thing. It's very productive. It can produce incredible clarity. It can help you come up with new ideas or to organize what you've already begun. So please understand this about the Mercury retrograde or this Mercury transit in Pisces. I mentioned to you that it entered Pisces on February 6th, and it doesn't complete the transit in Pisces until mid-April. So pay attention to anything creative you begin. Pay attention to all of your intuitive skills. Pay attention to what you are clarifying in your own mind that starts in February that will probably consolidate and come together by mid-April. Okay. So we have this long transit for a reason. And certainly align your thoughts with lovingness, align your thoughts with compassion, Mercury and Pisces, with intuition, compassion, abstraction, receiving downloads from the universe. That's the perfect way to use Mercury and Pisces. So then the very last thing I want to talk about for the year or for the month of February is Mars in Aquarius squaring Uranus on February 27th. Now, it's not just February 27th. You'll feel it a few days before, you'll feel it a few days after. This is a strong aspect. If you use it well, personally, this is the time to stand firm in your truth. And I love the image that's on screen. The man standing on part of a mountain peak, and he's got his arms outstretched, receiving the energy from the universe, but in a very solid stance. Stand firm in your truth, ground yourself. Mars square Uranus can be a beautiful thing when you are in charge of yourself, when you have a sense of independence and a sense of confidence within your ability to make sense of the universe. Mars square Uranus, not managed well, can be anger, can be frustration, can be irritation, impatience, and you might be sensing some of that in the world. It could be a volatile time. But if you guide it toward standing firm in your truth and you practice that, I think you're going to really like it. I'm looking forward to this. All right, so my final thoughts for the month. Feel the push to take action and do something with it. The fire horse year beginning, Saturn and Neptune going into Aries, energizing action, action, action. And on top of that, all of the electricity from Uranus getting very, very strong, teaching us to be confident and to be free, teaching us to embrace adventure in life and not to get too caught up into the need for control. And be brave. Be brave. Make a point to be confident and brave to, depending on what your career is, if you need to ask for the sale, ask for the sale. Take action, forward steps, heal imposter syndrome, all the things I talked about. This is a month where so many new cycles begin. And the mandala on screen is a mandala I created that I called the Adventure Mandala. It carries an expansion energy. It's very dynamic. Okay, so as always, I send you much love and many blessings. And I know February is going to be a fabulous month. And I look forward to talking to you in March. Okay, enjoy and happy Chinese New Year.